Just outside of Monte Carlo Suites, we can find an abandoned house not marked on the map. One of the most noticeable features on this abode is the rigged mailbox in front of it. Getting close to the mailbox will cause it to explode and will do some damage if you are not at a safe distance. Inside, we can find what you would expect: a living room with a TV, a kitchen with some goodies in the fridge for any scavengers who happen by, and a big bed the courier can sleep on, making this a great place to stop and rest. The cell name for this abandoned house is Abandoned Usonian Home 01. This is a reference to the group of over 50 homes designed by Frank Lloyd Wright starting in 1934. Wright used the term Usonian instead of American and used this design to showcase a new world style of living that was distinct from previous structures. Be careful when leaving this house though, as 3 fiends will ambush the courier as soon as they make their exit. It seems we aren't the only ones with an eye for comfort in the Mojave. At Repcon HQ, we can obtain an unmarked quest called Access Powers. This will see the courier take the tour of the facility and then pick up Ginny Millett's security keycard to start the quest. This card will open the locked door with all the dead fiends around it. What follows is an adventure through the building, avoiding or passing skill checks with robots on different floors, all leading to a door that holds the Q-35 Matter Modulator, a unique plasma rifle. If your science or lockpick skill is at 100, you can bypass a large portion of the quest by simply breaking into this room, but without the skills, you will need to hunt keys. The reward is a fantastic plasma rifle and a great find for unique item hunters. Entering Vault 34 will lead us to an unmarked quest called All Fired Up. In the quest, we must find a way into the Armory of the Vault, which can involve some underwater antics. Vault 34 is very easy to get lost in and is covered in radiation. However, with a high science skill, we can get into some terminals that can make the whole experience a lot less traumatizing. After going through the labyrinth that is Vault 34 and finally unlocking the Armory, we are rewarded with a lot of great gear. Weapons and ammo litter the room, but the main focus and pinnacle of the reward here is the All-American. This unique marksman carbine does more damage per shot and has a faster rate of fire than the standard variation, which is already a great gun. Featuring a camo finish and a reference to the real-world 82nd All-American Airborne Division by emblazing their insignia on the magazine. According to New Vegas director Joshua Sawyer, this was included simply because the gun shares the same nickname as the division. This gun is 100% worth the trek through Vault 34 and is hands down one of my favorite weapons in the game, a perfect collector's piece of unique item hoarders. When at Camp Forlorn Hope, we can speak to Private Sexton, who can give the courier an unmarked quest called An Ear to the Ground.
Hey there, the name's Sexton, Private James Sexton. Welcome to Forlorn Hope. I've been placed in charge of morale. It's difficult trying to keep spirits up with the Legion nearby. In fact, there's more hope in wrangling Brahmin with my grandmother's stocking than inspiring these troopers. Ironic, isn't it? But it's understandable. The constant skirmishes take their toll on everyone in the end. I call that an understatement. But I can't complain. I'm not in the field as much as the others. I just stay here most of the day, coming up with activities to occupy the camp. Which reminds me of something I've been meaning to try. A killer competition to boost morale. Interested? Great. Since the camp is threatened by Legion, I propose a hunt. Kill any you encounter and bring me the Legion's ear as proof. You get it? Legion ear? Yep, been waiting for a chance to use it. So can I count you in? Great. Don't be surprised if you're already last when you return. If I'm right, the troopers will use any excuse to slaughter Legion's scum. Can I help you with anything else? Lower than a feral ghoul's IQ. See you later.
You can find ears on pretty much every legionary you put down, and the progress is tracked by tallies etched into the wall inside the mess hall of the camp. We can see that once we hit the max of 30, that 30 marks are left on the wall.
What can I do for you? Oh boy! This puts you far ahead of everyone else. I think I'll have to declare you the winner of the competition. It's not much, but here's a little something I scraped together for the winner of the contest. Good job. You earned it.
Completing this quest will net you some respect with the NCR, some caps, and a few beers, but the morale boost it gives to Camp Forlorn Hope is priceless. Right outside of Jean, we can stumble across Barton Thorne, who kicks off the unmarked quest Barton the Fink.
Hello? Can you help me? My girl is trapped by geckos on the ridge, and I can't get to her. Please, she's going to die. Go up the path, past the broken radio tower, and go to the right. They're at the top of the trail. You will? Thank you for helping me. Please hurry.
The quest's name is a reference to the Coen brothers film Barton Fink. After taking care of the geckos, Barton will reveal that he made up his damsel in distress story and plans on jumping you. Once you dispose of Barton, you can claim the stash for yourself, which contains an ammo box, a fridge, and some random loot. We can also see the Johnny 5 Aces reference here if the Wild Wasteland trait is activated.
Sorry I tricked you, but thanks for clearing out the geckos. Now I can get to that stash up there, after I deal with you.
When in Westside, you may find yourself at the Casa Madrid. This hotel is a haven for Pretty Sarah, a pimp who can tip you off to an unmarked quest called A Bit of Slap and Tickle. This is a British turn of phrase referring to sexual acts. The name is fitting, as this quest is completed by hiring one of the prostitutes who call the hotel home. Sarah gives the courier the rundown on each of the workers.
Welcome to the Casa Madrid. If you got an itch needs scratching, you came to the right place. Just watch how you treat the merchandise. 3 flavors to choose from: Sweetie, Maud, and Jimmy. Sweetie's the house favorite for reasons that should be obvious. Maud is what you might call the discount rack. She's what a customer wears if he doesn't have the caps to afford Sweetie, or just likes them old. Jimmy's more of a specialist. I only hear good things. I look after the only reasons anyone would want to spend any time here. I'm a pimp. All Marco does is collect rent and take a small cut of my action. He sure as hell doesn't clean the rooms. Most of my body is scarred all over, like a ghoul. Nobody around who'd want to screw that. No, I just run things. We don't talk about that. Next topic. You know where to find me.
Hey, baby, what say you and me get acquainted? It's worth every cap, baby. I'll do things to you you didn't even think was possible, and leave you feeling like everything's right in the world. So get on the bed already. I got something to show you. You know you'll be back.
Hey, mister, looking to relax? Looks like you carry a lot of tension in your shoulders. And upper thighs. Baby, who I am doesn't matter. I'll be anybody you need me to be. It's better that way, you'll see. Half a year or so. The Casa is a dump and Marco's a pig, but Pretty Sarah makes sure I don't get hassled. I don't get as many customers as Sweetie or Maud, but the customers I do get always come back. She's an honest woman, splits the earnings fair and keeps Sweetie and Maud in line. Minds her own business, too. She knows what it's like for people to go through things they'd rather not talk about. Pittance, sugar. And I'll leave you without a care in the world. Oh, we will, sugar. We will.
I'm glad mean son of a bitch is on our side. Hello, stranger. You looking for a good time? Old but spry, honey. So long as my back don't give out, I can make a living lying on it. May not be as fresh as Sweetie or Jimmy, but pretty Sarah keeps me around for a good reason. Experience. Best prices around, so long as you don't try putting anything someplace it was never intended. How's that sound? You won't notice anything once the lights are out, hon. The places that count are still firm enough.
Once the deed is done, the quest is over, and the only reward we get from this is the act itself. But the name of this unmarked quest alone is reason enough to talk about it. Smack dab in the middle between Camp Searchlight and the corresponding airport, we can find Camp Searchlight Trailer Park. This location will not be marked on the Pip-Boy map. Clearly this area has seen better days, but that doesn't mean we can't find some loot, including a few bottles of Rad-X lying around just waiting for somebody to give them a good home. Golden geckos have made this area their home now, and the patrolling feral ghouls that march around the perimeter do not make things much better. Still, if you can stand the rads, any treasure left from before this place was hit can be yours. In Calville Bay, right outside the shore of Lake Mead, we can find Captain Dean Boat Rentals. The sign outside says Captain Dean Boats and Bait, Worms, Ice Cream. This is a pre-war dock shop that would have rented the boats we see next door to the people looking to have fun in the sun on Lake Mead. This is before the Cazadores moved in. Watch yourself when you go inside. A few giant rats are always lurking around, but for curious Fallout New Vegas fans, this is a great stop. First, we can find 2 Sunset Sarsaparilla star caps, one on the middle of the main display and one next to the cash register. Speaking of the cash register, there is a ton of junk to find here, with hidden treasures mixed in. Boxes of bobby pins, drinks, and even an average locked safe with a few items to nab inside. We can see the boat rentals board with keys still hanging, waiting for someone to take a boat for a joyride, but sadly, we cannot interact with any of these. The most interesting thing about this location is the unmarked toy car found sitting on the center shelf. It will show no name when highlighted, simply saying "take" when we put our reticle over it, though this is impossible as the toy cannot be added to the courier's inventory. Using the grab command, clicking in the right stick on controllers, or hitting the Z key on keyboards will prompt the glitch tutorial to tell you to use the same command to drop the skull. This is the same prompt we would see at Doc Mitchell's in the beginning of the game if the skull was interacted with. Strange items like this pop up all the time in the Fallout games. The question you must ask yourself is if you are willing to risk it with the Cazadores to see it for yourself. One of the biggest landmarks in Fallout New Vegas is also one of the most easily missed. The Colorado River runs through the map, bordering the fort, and flows through Hoover Dam. In the normal playing area of New Vegas, no part of the Colorado is radiated, making it a great drinking spot to refill some HP when you are hurting in the desert. The real-world river runs through 7 US states and deep into Mexico, but it's much larger than it appears in-game. New Vegas devs used US Geological Survey data to create the map at a 1/25th scale. However, the Colorado River and Lake Mead were expanded past this scale so that players don't think that they appeared too small. Next to the Nipton Road pit stop, we can find the remains of a cargo plane crashed into the sand amongst a ton of rad scorpions. This relic of the old world doesn't have much to offer, but it's still a really cool thing to find in the middle of the desert. We can find a bit of 5.56 ammo in a crate here, but that is about it unless you enjoy hunting the scorpions for their tails and meat, which can be quite helpful out in the waste. Normally, we can't see much of the plane as just a bit of it is sticking out of the sand, but if we take the camera under the world map, we can see that the cargo plane is fully modeled. It's a really cool object, showing us glimpses of transportation from the pre-war world. This location is also where Oliver Swanwick will flee after we encounter him in Nipton. If you have left the rad scorpions alive, Swanwick will run into them and likely make his way to the plane. Hopefully, he held on to that lottery ticket for a little extra luck. Right across the river from the Cliffside Prospector Camp, we can find a terrible unmarked location known as the Deathclaw Promontory. We can find a huge pack of FEV lizards, complete with alpha males and mothers. The most appealing part of this location is the loot that you can get if you venture there. Waiting for you is a full T-51B set of power armor, a multi-blast rifle, and one of the only advanced power armor sets that we can find in the game, though it's missing the helmet. This place makes Quarry Junction look like a day in the park, so you should only travel here when you are good and ready. It wouldn't hurt to have power armor training as well. You are going to need it. There are plenty of consumable items that we can find around the Mojave, but there is one wasteland delight that the courier has to craft themselves, the desert salad. If you have a barrel cactus fruit, a Brahmin steak, and some pinion nuts, with a survival skill of at least 55, you can craft this delicacy yourself at any campfire. If the courier has a maxed out survival skill, this salad will heal a ton of HP, as well as restore both hydration and starvation levels when doing a hardcore run. I love the way this texture looks, and it's great to be able to create your own rare items in the game, even if they aren't so valuable. One of the fun pastimes that we can indulge in the Mojave is gambling. Many casinos across the wasteland offer games for wary wastelanders to wager their caps in, but one was left out, though we can still see remnants of it in the game. We can find craps tables in some locations, but none of them allow us to partake in the game itself. These tables are all that remains of the game of chance. However, dice can still be found in the game files. While no games we play really use them, dice appear in Fallout New Vegas fully modeled. Now, I swear I've seen these in-game naturally somewhere, but I cannot remember where, and the internet doesn't have any answers either, so perhaps I had a mod that added them in some way. If you've seen these dice in this model in your vanilla game with no mods, let me know in the comments below. Nestled in Prim, the El Diablo roller coaster has seen better days. The attraction is connected to the Bison Steve and is one of the only landmarks in the town. The now broken track wraps around the casino and offers a great vantage point for the NCRCF escaped convicts to take pot shots at anyone who wanders too close. While we can see the state of the roller coaster now, it had its problems pre-war as well. If we head over to the neighboring Vicky and Vance casino, we can find a framed newspaper article that discusses a resident getting splattered on the tracks. While this is the only bit of information we have on this incident, it would seem this roller coaster has quite the history and was clearly the target of something, seeing how damaged it is when we make our way into Prim. The Fat Man is a devastating weapon that launches mini nukes at your target, but they can be quite rare and a little expensive, so let's look at where we can find them around the Mojave. First, there is a skeleton still holding on tight to his mini nuke launcher next to a radioactive pond inside Quarry Junction. The Deathclaws make this area a bit of a slog to go through, but adding this Fat Man to the collection does make some of it worth it. Heading down to Cottonwood Crater, we can find a dead prospector. If we loot them, we can find another Fat Man ripe for the taking. Of course, you have to watch out for the geckos and the rads in the area, but we just scored a new launcher. Making our way to Nuca Cave, we will have to fight through some fire geckos, but deep inside, we can find a super mutant master who happens to have another Fat Man to add to our collection. In the mountains behind Jacobstown, we can find a nest swarming with Cazadores. Another super mutant master rests here, and in his inventory is the final Fat Man that we can find just lying around. Of course, more can be bought at a few vendors, but if you are up for the risk, these are the only ones that you will find out in the Mojave. Using all of them to repair your main launcher with a high repair skill will net you a Fat Man in pretty decent shape. There are a lot of cars littering the roads around the Mojave, but one of the most rare is also one of the most interesting. The Flea only appears twice in Fallout New Vegas. We can find one lying on its side against a truck at El Dorado Dry Lake, and it appears that the truck may have been carrying the car, or maybe during the apocalypse, the two collided. The other place that we can find a Flea is on the Ivampa racetrack. This one is still in the upright position, and we can get a sense of how these vehicles worked. The Flea features one seat and is only just a bit bigger than the Courier themselves. The driver would enter the car through a hatch and use a split steering column to control the car. What do you think about the Flea? Would you want one to drive around town, or do they just look too goofy for you? In Freeside, down the road from Mick and Ralph's, we can see a thug gesturing to the Courier from an alley. This starts off the Unmarked Quest, flogging a dead corpse.
Check it out, between the dumpsters there. Nah, just some idiot that wandered down the wrong alley. Sound familiar?
You have to wonder about the intelligence of somebody who would try to pull this kind of thing on the Courier, but I suppose Freeside is a place to find such people.
I take pride in my needlework, but you'd better tell me if I left anything out of place. How'd I do?
At the start of Fallout New Vegas, Doc Mitchell will present the Courier with the Reflectron, allowing us to customize our appearance. This is different than what we see in Fallout 3, where the gene projector was used, but we can still find these in Fallout New Vegas. We can find one in the Hidden Valley bunker in the medical area, another can be found upstairs at the Repcon test site, and finally, we can find one at Hoover Dam in the first power plant section. These can't be interacted with, but they're still a unique find here in the Mojave, even if they are just being used essentially as random set pieces.
Looks like they've finished the gene projection. Let's see what you'll look like when you're all grown up.
Right outside the entrance to Red Rock Canyon and a bit northeast of Mount Ranch State Park, we can find a destroyed house that has a little more going on with it than the usual decrepit dwellings that we find around the Mojave. A cellar door next to the home will bring us into the basement, which acts as an armory for the Great Khans. If the Courier has at least an accepted reputation with the faction, the armorer will sell guns and ammo to them. She has a good selection behind a cell door here, and the location also boasts a workbench and a reloading bench, making it an excellent stop to restock everything you may need to take on the Wasteland. The only question I have is, why is there a jail cell in a random house's basement? I can only assume the Khans didn't build this themselves, so either this is some kind of detainment area for the pre-war state park, which is strange, or some Red Rock resident had some skeletons in their closet, or basement we could say in this scenario. Inside the Gypsum train yard, we can find a ton of Deathclaws, but we can also find the unmarked Gypsum Quarry Office. If the lizards see you enter the office, they will come barging in one by one, and fighting them becomes much worse. The interior of the office has some fun things like giant ants, but more curiously, it has some posters from Vault-Tec, which could be due to the nearby Vault 34. Perhaps this office has some kind of ties to the underground bunker. We can also find a Sunset Sarsaparilla Star bottle cap here. When I arrived, it had clipped into the desk, but no clipping under allowed me to see that it was indeed still there. There are a few loot containers here that can offer some nice rewards, but none of them are quite worth the Deathclaw onslaught that will ensue if the Courier gets spotted by the giant reptiles. In between Ranger Station Foxtrot and Brewer's Beer bootlegging, we can find an unmarked location known as the Hidden Cazador Nest, an area plenty in the Mojave are happy to avoid. However, if the Courier does find themselves here, after dealing with the Cazadores, we can find a duffel bag with some Mark II reinforced combat armor. Quite a good find just lying out in the desert. Of course, you have to fight an entire hive of murder hornets, so whether or not it's worth it will be up to you. Just a bit outside Good Springs and right next to the Yangtze Memorial, we can find an abandoned shack unmarked on the map. A sign above the door reads, the Hornets Nest 588, so that's what I'll call it moving forward. Inside the Hornets Nest, we can find a functioning reloading bench and a usable bed, as well as some goodies inside a few containers. These containers do not refresh, so this is an excellent first player home right at the start of Fallout New Vegas. While I wouldn't recommend drinking from the sink or the toilet due to the overwhelming amount of rats that they produce, I would recommend picking up the doggy treat that's right next to the burning barrel, as this is the only one that we can find in the base game of Fallout New Vegas. Unique items aside, this bunker will suit any desert-ravaged courier who needs a good place to store their loot and get some shut-eye. Just south across the road from the Northern Passage, we can find a Jackal Shack. This is unmarked on the map and usually has a couple of Jackal gang members hanging around it, thus the name. While the Jackals themselves are not carrying anything too crazy, we can find a couple of beds here, a Brahmin steak, and a few chems inside an average locked first aid box, so it's a nice place to scope out when you're in the area. Once you take out the gang that calls the shack home, you can cook your steak at the campfire and sleep under the stars in one of the makeshift beds found on the shack floor. An ideal Mojave night. Across the river from Blue Paradise Vacation Rentals, we can find an unmarked location known as Lake Lurk Cove. This is an absolute must-visit location for Lake Lurk enthusiasts, as we can find 2 large packs of the creatures hanging out around the water. After dealing with the monsters, we can search the nearby cave for some pretty good loot, as there's a dead mercenary and 2 duffel bags. One of the bags features some reinforced combat armor, so this is a great place to stop for some XP and to get some helpful gear, even if you only plan on selling the score. Lake Lurks are certainly one of the most interesting creatures in Fallout New Vegas, and this is the place to find them. Between Whitaker Farmstead and Hunter's Farm, we can find one of the rarest items in Fallout New Vegas, the lawnmower. This is the only location that we can find one of these bad boys, and we can even loot its blades from inside. These blades are also rare, with the only other location that we can find them being Gibson's Shack. These have no use in New Vegas and really can only be sold for a small amount of caps, but if you are into rare items, this is a must-stop for you. There are a group of unmarked apartments between Monte Carlo Suites and the Thorn. They don't have a whole lot to offer, but 3 of them are named without being marked on the map. First we have Tiki Tonga Apartments, usually infested with Scorpion gang members. Random loot can be found in dumpsters and a mailbox that are featured around the area, but that's about it. The same can be said for the Summer Springs boarding house, which has even less to offer, with the exception of more fiends and scorpions patrolling the area. Finally, we have Le Canard Apartments, which has the most going on out of the 3, even though there's still not much to find. Crops grow in front of the building, though we cannot harvest anything from them. And much like the other 2 complexes, we cannot enter any door here, but some random loot can be found in trash cans and mailboxes around the site. I find it interesting that these places were named and given signs, but not marked on the map or used in any significant way, though it adds to the depth of New Vegas to see these fully realized areas, even when they are locked up pretty tight. When talking to Lucius at the fort, if the courier has an unarmed skill of at least 50, then the option to learn a new attack will open. The Praetorian leader will teach us Legion Assault.
Yes. Do you have something to report? Of course. This will take some time, and I'm not a forgiving teacher.
The attack features almost a Superman punch strike. While running forward and using a power attack, the courier will jump in the air and strike down, which will also cause a knockback effect. This Legion unarmed technique is a great way to smash through the Mojave, with even the biggest creatures getting bopped back to reality. When you reach Wolfhorn Ranch, just outside the site, there will be an epic encounter. Well-protected, traveling merchants will be ambushed by small groups of Caesar's Legion. Sometimes, an NCR patrol may even wander through at the same time, making this one hell of a skirmish. After the dust has settled, we can trade with the merchants, who have a good amount of caps and some decent gear, or we can even loot the losers of the conflict for some extra stuff. Whatever your choice, it's still a wild encounter to spectate.
You like that?
Down at Ranger Station Foxtrot, we can meet Lank, who seems to be having troubles and it's starting to affect her work as an NCR comm officer. Speaking to her will give us some details on her problems.
You're here for the money. I told the Emeritus I was good for it. I just need more time. I talked to the cashier at Gamora into forwarding me some chips. I was convinced I was due for a hot streak. It didn't go so well. The Emeritus were nice and said they'd give me some time to pay them back. They also said if they had to talk to me about my debt again, they wouldn't be nice the next time. I don't want to talk about it. We were on patrol near the dam when a Legion raiding party jumped us. Didn't even have time to radio it in. I was hit in the head with a machete and knocked out. Didn't kill me, though some nights I wish it had. When I woke up, my nerve was gone. The rest of my squad was crucified, butchered, mutilated. I don't know how they missed me. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they knew they'd broken me. I gambled and drank a lot after that. Got into trouble. But the Rangers gave me a second chance instead of kicking me out. So here I am. Maybe. But thanks for saying it anyway. I operate the radio and call it in if we see any great cons moving out in large groups from Red Rock Canyon. Watch out for great cons.
Helping Link is nice, even though you can choose to do the opposite. Afterwards, we can talk to Ranger Kudlow for just a bit more info on how bad things have gotten with the comm officer within the ranks of the NCR.
No run-ins with the great cons, I hope. They've been more restless than usual. Yeah, it's a damn shame. There was a lot of talk about expelling her from the Rangers, especially once the gambling and drinking started. Being posted here is her second and last chance, and so far, I'm not impressed. Link's jumpy all the time, and the others are sick of it.
We can find several different license plates around the Mojave and beyond in Fallout New Vegas, with the most common one being this Nevada plate found on pickup trucks around the map. Though if we look at the bumper sword, we can see this Southwest Nevada plate from 2052. And this isn't the only item that we can find plates on either, as we can find this Illinois license plate on Eddie. When venturing through Zion, we can find this Utah branded plate on park ranger trucks littered across the roads through the sprawling canyons. Venturing to Big Mountain, if we have the Wild Wasteland perk, we can find this New Jersey plate on a truck near Little Yanks. Finally, taking a look at the marked scout armor from Lonesome Road, we can see this California license plate attached to the back of the outfit. It's pretty interesting to see these used in different ways, and all of the far-off locations really make you wonder, how are those places doing since the Great War? We can find a small unmarked camp with a crashed-out Corvega south of Smith Mesa Prospector Camp. While there is little here to see, with the exception of the car and a campfire, we can find an oversized Nevada agave plant and a banana yucca as well. What makes this place interesting is while we are here, after the initial ambient music is played, the tracks Dreamtown or Metallic Monks will play on an infinite loop until we leave. This is fantastic, as these are some of the best tracks from Mark Morgan that were included in the classic Fallout games. Most of the time, when I play Fallout New Vegas, I choose the Wild Wasteland trait, which means that the mercenary camp we find north of Horowitz Farmstead is always occupied by aliens. It seems the devs wanted you to choose which unique weapon you would like, as the Zetans drop an alien blaster, but without the Wild Wasteland trait, we find a larger group of mercenaries here. One of these Wasteland Soldiers has a nice set of reinforced combat armor and is wielding a YCS-186, a unique Gauss rifle that packs a serious punch. If you choose Wild Wasteland, this gun will be unobtainable during your entire playthrough, and vice versa with the alien blaster. So, make your choice wisely. Just outside of the California Sunset Drive-In, we can find a lean-to setup with a radio tower on top of it. The makeshift camp has some dangers, like a mine setup under the traffic cone that wandering coyotes can set off, causing a horrible chain reaction. If the courier doesn't blow themselves up, we can find a hockey mask here as well as a Sunset Sarsaparilla Star bottle cap. The camp also features a usable mattress if you need a rest, but the nearby ghoul-infested irradiated shack may steer some wasteland travelers away. When traveling north of Vegas, we can find a house that is open to explore. Outside, we find a fridge with a few items and a mailbox that could hold some goodies as well. Inside, we can see that the entire floor of the house is covered in soil, and maize is growing everywhere we can see. Altogether, we can gather 38 maize from inside this home. This place used to act as a moonshine still, using the fermented maize as a main ingredient. We can see signs of this with the still remaining in the house and a big bottle of moonshine sitting on the table next to it, which is a decently rare item in Fallout New Vegas. There is an unlocked safe here with some random loot, a first aid box, and a usable bed to get some shut-eye. The corn house, as I like to call it, is certainly an interesting find in the Mojave and a great place to harvest one of the best crops in the game. Close to North Vegas Square, we can find a house that can be used for player housing, as the containers do not refresh. Inside, we can find an unowned bed and various loot throughout the dwelling. There isn't a whole lot to see here, but it's still an interesting unmarked location, and we can farm the nearby Jackal camp for gear and XP. At the old nuclear test site, we can find an unmarked shack with a few fun things to discover. The location was used to test atomic bombs in the past, and the craters still remain outside the map today. The area is highly irradiated, and ghouls patrol the area, making it a location very few will risk venturing into. Inside the shack, we can find various chems, a copy of Nikola Tesla and You, a hunting shotgun, one Sunset Sarsaparilla Star bottle cap, and 3 entries of the diary of trash. The first entry is on the shelf. Dear Diary, I'm so done being confined in this human body, so today I moved into the shack at the abandoned test site. There should be enough radiation to turn me into a ghoul. All around me, this world is bleak and dreadful. Is it so wrong to want a body to match it? I wonder what color my skin will turn, and if I'll be able to find a good shade of lipstick to go with it. Probably not. God, everything is so miserable. The second can be found on top of the Nikola Tesla and You by the chemistry set. Dear Diary, I've been in this shack for almost a week now. Nothing is happening. I'm so bored, and this shack is so hot, and it's totally ruining my hair. It's like so hard to find dye this color in the wasteland. This sucks. I want to be a ghoul now. I hate all this waiting. Life. Ugh. Living is so overrated. And the third and final entry can be found on the corpse of Trash herself, who is also carrying a set of reinforced leather armor. Dear Diary. Good news, Diary. I think it's finally starting to happen. Okay, so I do feel like totally miserable. What else is new? Ha ha ha. And my skin is starting to peel off, but I'm pretty sure that is the first step. Oh, and my hair. I finally got it just the way I like it, and now it starts coming out. Why does ghoulification have to be so unfair? It seems Trash was a little dramatic and longed for a life more in line with her environment, likely not knowing the effects that large amounts of radiation would have on her. However, I imagine she is pretty lucky that the ghouls outside didn't find her first. Many buildings in the Mojave have kitchens, and most of these kitchens have refrigerators. However, we can find a rare variant around the Wasteland, the Nuca-Cola fridge. Unlike most of the interactions that we see that capitalize every part of the object name, the Nuca-Cola fridge leaves the word fridge lowercase. There are 4 of these unique fridges around the map. In Vault 22, we can find one in the common area. Same with the Broadcast building on Black Mountain. Nipton General Store has one as well, right behind where we can find boxcars. And finally, we can see another one next to a standard fridge inside the mess hall at Cottonwood Cove. All of these Nuca-Cola branded cooling machines are empty, at least they were when I visited them, but their designs are super cool, and they certainly stand out in a broken down kitchen. Just north of the NCR Sharecropper Farms, we can find an unmarked house belonging to Orion Mirand. Speaking with him outside of the Enclave quest will lead to a dead end.
Looks like I forgot to lock the doors again. If you're with the NCR, get out. This place is mine, and I'm not leaving. Oh, like you wouldn't believe. The NCR makes a habit out of wrecking homes. I came out here to get away from them. Didn't work out so well. Next thing I know, I'm squatting in their land. Never mind that I already been living here for years. I don't do anything. I'm retired. I was a soldier. Why do you even care? I came out here to forget about the past, so quit bringing it up.
The interesting thing about this house is that its interior layout is pretty much identical to Doc Mitchell's in Good Springs. While similar looking locations are common in Fallout New Vegas, the inside of this house is instantly recognizable to anyone who has started multiple playthroughs of the game. While the bed here is usable, almost all of the items here are considered owned by Mirand, so taking them will ding the courier's karma, as well as piss off the lone resident. So keep your hands off of things unless you want to get into a fight with an ex-Enclave soldier. If the courier inspects the various artifacts at the Vicky and Vance Casino in Prim, they can discover that the gun is missing from the display rack. In fact, the only thing that remains in the museum display for the criminal couple is their death car, covered in bullet holes. Speaking to Prim Slim, if we have a science skill of at least 50, we can discover that the robot had been hacked.
Howdy, partner. Welcome to the Vicky and Vance Casino and Museum. Prim Slim at your service. Authentic cowpoke and official spokesspot of the Vicky and Vance Casino and Museum. Yeehaw! Just mosey on over to the display case and you'll see it plain as day. Quite a piece, that gun. Mint condition, never fired. Well, look at that. I happened across this data file locked away in an isolated subsystem. Where have you been, partner? Hiding under a rock? Vicky and Vance were this nation's 4th or maybe 5th most infamous celebrity outlaw couple ever. That's who they was. Prim Slim here can tell you the whole story, if you can spare a minute to hear the tale. You got it, partner. Prim Slim loves to spin a yarn. First things first. Any boss you've heard about Vicky and Vance being copycats ain't nothing but ill-tempered slander. Fact is, they begun their crime spree 2 days before Bonnie and Clyde robbed their first bank. So who was copying who? Now, true, Vicky and Vance didn't exactly cut a wide swath of murder and bank robbery across the central U.S. like Bonnie and Clyde did. It was more like a narrow swath of shoplifting, check cashing fraud, and gas pump drive-offs. But crime is crime. They drove reckless, too. Having lived by the gun, well, Vance owned one anyway, it was only fitting that the duo of desperados would die by the gun. Perhaps it was fate itself that accidentally drove them into a crossfire between police and a gang of bank robbers in Plano, Texas. Or maybe they just didn't notice until it was too late. It's been said that Vicky would have tried to cash a bad check in that bank, had she lived. We'll never know for sure. All we know is that the crossfire tore the car and both occupants to pieces, and the police issued an official apology. You can put your eyes on the genuine death card just over yonder, and there's Vance's machine gun in the case next to it.
If we head north of Vegas, we can find an unmarked location known as Wynn's Hideout. This is the home of Sammy and Pauline Wynns, who seem to want to emulate the lifestyle of Vicky and Vance. Speaking with the couple will prompt them to explain their plan to the courier, and with a speech skill of at least 55, we can show support for this dynamic duo.
What are you doing here, stranger? You looking to start some trouble? Me? I'm Sammy, of Sammy and Pauline, the Wasteland's most dangerous and notorious criminal duo. You better not mess with us or you'll end up face down in a shallow grave. Simple. Up until now, we committed our crimes stealthily, leaving no evidence behind, so we never built a rep. But that's gonna change with our next score. You just wait and see. You'll have to ask Pauline about that. She's the brains of our operation. I'm the muscle. So, that's just one of our crimes. We're depraved, stone-cold degenerates, you know? You don't want to mess with us. Yeah, bye.
You best not try any funny business, stranger. One word from me, and Vance will plant you in the ground. I'm Pauline, of Sammy and Pauline, the Wasteland's most dangerous and notorious criminal couple. You'd best not mess with us, or you'll have a bullet hole where your eye used to be. We ain't never heard of you either, so the not being impressed is mutual. Come a week or so, though, and everyone will have heard of Sammy and Pauline. Just you wait. Sammy and me got our hands on a powerful weapon not too long ago. Vance's gun. You know Vance, of Vance and Vicky? That gun's our shot at the big time. We're gonna sneak it in on the strip and rob one of the casinos. Maybe all of them. We'll be known as the greatest gunslingers to ever terrorize the Wastelands. You'll see. You'll feel stupid that you made fun of us when you learn how rich we are. Why would I deny it? I was the one that hacked that cowboy robot while Vance kept him busy. Ain't the first thing we stole, won't be the last. Really? You think so? We've only got the one gun and there's two of us. And we've never done anything like this before. We've never been on the strip either, so we don't know how many guards the casinos have. And I kept having these nightmares. What are we thinking? We're gonna get ourselves killed. Look, tell Sammy to give you the gun, all right? Just take it. I don't want it around tempting us to do something stupid. See you.
This better be good, stranger. Really? Oh, thank God. I love that woman, but I swear this time she was gonna get us killed. The gun's in the safe. The combination's 5, 23, 34. Take it far away from here before she changes her mind. See you.
The code that Sammy gives the courier is actually a reference to the date that the real Bonnie and Clyde met their end, May 23rd, 1934. This is a well-placed homage to the original inspirations of this quest. Vance's 9mm submachine gun is the main reward here. It is better than the standard variant in almost every way and looks great in the game. This is a great quest to complete for unique item hunters. There is an unmarked quest called A Final Plan for Esteban, which sees the courier talk to Private Morales, who just lost her husband and is worried that his body will not be secured by the NCR.
Did the Colonel send you? I was hoping he might have changed his mind. I know. I've been crying. Stupid. I'm supposed to be a soldier. My husband, he's a ranger, and he got murdered by a pack of fiends. Goddamn savages laid his body out to rot. Brass won't say it to me straight, but they mean to leave Esteban out there. I can see that plain. Colonel says he can't spare the men to bring Esteban back home. And the fiends, they put all kinds of mines and traps around his body. Snipers, too. His best friend, Jackson, tried. Didn't even get permission from his CO, so it could have cost him a lot. But he never came back. Mister, I'd about given up hope. But you've got to be careful. I don't want anybody else dying on my account. Esteban's body is laid out between some of the buildings, east of the Repcon headquarters. At least that's what his squad mates said. There's an NCR position just north of there. It's on the way. They should be able to tell you what the situation is.
Heading out towards Repcon HQ, we can find a couple of NCR soldiers who will give us a little more information on the task at hand.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold up. Where do you think you're going? Christina hired you, huh? Well, if you're gonna go up there, there's a couple things you should know. Esteban's body's in the middle of those buildings up the hill there. Look carefully and you can see the fiends patrolling the rooftops. But they laid traps, too. There's mines all over. So for God's sakes, watch your feet. Get him back here. We'll get him home. Least we can do. Wish we could help more.
Once we neutralize the fiends in the area, we can find Esteban's corpse laying in the center of the pavilion. We can sometimes find Jackson's body as well, though he doesn't always spawn into the game, and there is no reward for bringing his remains back. Carrying Esteban back to the troopers will ensure that his body will be kept by the NCR, and returning to Private Morales will complete the quest.
Did you start looking for Esteban? I guess my directions could have been better. They put him in a box? With a flag and all? I hope so. He'd have been proud. You're too good for this rotten town. First kind thing anybody ever did for me and Esteban. You ever need anything, all you need to do is ask. Thank you so much.
This will also influence Dr. Kemp at Camp McCarran to give the courier a discount on services and supplies, so this small task is pretty worth it for people who are friendly with the NCR. Leading into Bitter Springs, we can find an unmarked location known as Red Pass. Bitter Springs was the site of a terrible massacre when NCR forces opened fire on civilians as they fled from their camps in the rocks, and Red Pass has a memorial of sorts for visitors. We can see many graves running through the pass, each likely holding a member of the Great Khans who fell during the massacre. And we can find a rare item here though, as 3 Great Khan spike helmets decorate graves. These do not count as faction armor, so they are a good find for anyone who wants a new look while stomping around the Mojave. Across the Colorado River from Camp Forlorn Hope, we can find a small alcove that some lake lurks now call home. Water flows into the Shallo Cave, which features batches of lake lurk eggs. The main reason to visit this unmarked location is to look at the 2 explosive crates floating in the river. Each has quite a bit to offer the courier in terms of things that go boom. Lake lurks always seem to be up to something, so it's a good idea to see what they are gathered around whenever you come across these gross monsters. Littered across Westside and Freeside, we can find pre-war buildings that show off a bit of the lifestyle people local to Vegas were accustomed to. We can't enter these locations, but we can still see the remnants of what once was as we walk the streets around the Strip, such as Parker's Restaurant and Fountain, which is likely a reference to Fallout New Vegas developer Chris Parker, or Everett's Building and Garden Supplies, which is another likely reference to Scott Everett's, another Fallout New Vegas developer. Even Smitty's, which could be a throwback to Fallout 2, referring to a character in the game, but the sign does resemble the logo of a real-life restaurant chain from Canada with the same name. Others include Wolf's Bakery, Kingman's BBQ, Acme Realty, Cherry Liquor, B&K Cleaners, Buck's Steakhouse, Travel Service, and Pioneer Cafe. None of these can be entered, but it's still interesting to glimpse into the past a bit. We can also find these signs as a part of the barrier around New Vegas, so perhaps more of these locations existed in the area, but the signs are now being used for a more important purpose. I am sure nothing could top a big ribeye from Buck's Steakhouse as you found yourself closer and closer to the Strip, and I'm glad we still have these pre-war reminders in-game. Once a sheriff is found for Prim, the residents will feel more comfortable around the town, and many will leave the Vicky and Vance casino, as they've been hiding from escaped convicts inside for quite some time. While the casino is empty, if we wait a few days in-game, when entering the Vicky and Vance again, the courier will be ambushed by some NCR deserters. This triggers the Unmarked Quest, a team of moronic mercenaries. While there are a few ways to settle this peacefully, it's always more fun to just start blasting when you're in the Wasteland.
What are you doing here? This is our casino, punk. I like to think that we're prisoners of war that managed to escape before capture. I don't know how long it'll be before the Legion crosses the river, but sure as fuck I don't want to be wearing an NCR uniform when they get here. Fuck. We lose again. We heard Prim was ripe for the picking, so figured we could come here and shake down some of the suckers. We weren't expecting a sheriff here. We're just trying to put as many miles from NCR as we can. We don't want to be anywhere near New Vegas when the Legion crosses the river. Our luck has gone south since we lost all of our money gambling in Vegas. We didn't go AWOL from duty to become raiders. But we've seen what the Legion does to people that survive their battles. We wanted to be gone before the fighting starts. And we heard there may be some safety up in New Canaan. Looks like we got a wannabe hero on our hands, boys. Over here! You like that?
You like that?
In Vault 3, we can find Motor Runner. Though he is quite the tough customer, I want to talk about his throne for a bit here. This fancy chair is one of the only times we see hockey sticks in the Fallout universe. These particular sticks are branded Sherman Faber Hockey. We can also see a newspaper here, which is from the New Vegas Times, which hints at a possible post-war printing situation in the area. The headline reads, "Finally Caught." This is not the only place that we can find this throne either. Papa Khan has the exact same model at the Great Khan Longhouse, though it's missing the fancy rug. This throne is one of the best designs in the game, and it really emphasizes the post-apocalyptic aesthetic, you know, with the skulls and all. We can find traffic cones all over Fallout New Vegas. Most of the time, they are used to conceal mines and set up ambushes for less observant Wastelanders. Altogether, in the base game, we can find 104 of these traffic cones across the Mojave. Here's what they'd look like all in one place. Between Raoul's shack and the Brotherhood of Steel's safe house, we can find a train tunnel that is secured with a very hard lock. This tunnel can lead us directly into Nellis, but there are some fun things we can find before we get there. Avoiding the Deathclaws and entering the tunnel, we can find it is swarming with feral ghouls, looking for someone foolish enough to pick the locks and venture into the railway tunnel. Further inside, we can find some rare hats, like the fire helmet on a dead ghoul, which isn't quite as rare as the construction hat that we can find lying on the table in the maintenance room. In the base game of New Vegas, Chomps Lewis is the only other person that we can find this hat on, and having all the DLC will only bring 6 more into the game to find, so rare item collectors shouldn't miss this when they're in the area. The tunnel acts as a great way to get into Nellis that is a little less dangerous than coming from Vegas, if you have the lockpick skill to make it through. If you've made the choice to side with Caesar's Legion, or even just plan on helping out the group for a bit, you may obtain the liked status by the faction. After doing so, we can talk to Lucius, who heads the Praetorian Guard, and he will give the courier the key to the Legion's safe house.
You've proven yourself to be a true friend of the Legion. We have a safe house available to our agents in the Mojave. Here's the key. It's an excellent place to rest and store extra equipment. In addition, one of our veterans, Attakus, visits the house every few days. While he's there, you can acquire items useful for stealthy operations against our enemies from him.
Nestled on a hill overlooking the vast Mojave, the Caesar's Legion safe house offers a great view and a nice campfire to cook some wasteland delights and take a rest under the stars. Inside, Attakus can give the courier various items and shows up just about every 4 days.
What do you want? I'm here to keep everything in order. As a friend of the Legion, I can offer you some supplies while you're here. No, there are other places that require my attention. I have some goods collected during my travels. You may take something if you wish. Take it.
Further into the structure, we can find a thieves' ransom of Legion gear. Sets of Centurion armor, Vexillarius armor, and Praetorian armor litter the beds, along with some great weapon choices. We can also find the Lucky Shades here, which is the only location in the entire game that they can be found in, so always make sure to pick them up when you have access to the bunker. When traveling the Mojave, one of the things you will likely see the most is the tumbling tumbleweeds that call the desert home. These are just miscellaneous items that don't do anything besides exist, but this wasn't always the case. 2 other versions of tumbleweeds were cut from the game, one being a far smaller variant. This is the Wind Brahmin, and likely would have tied into the quest where the super mutant wants all of your caps for a Wind Brahmin farm. These smaller tumbleweeds can be killed and even have their branches crippled by attacks. This also applies to their larger counterpart, the radioactive tumbleweeds. These dried plants glow green and emit radiation to anything that gets too close, but much like the Wind Brahmins, they are easily dealt with and can take critical damage. Only the devs really know why something like this was cut from the game, but it is still interesting to see how these would have worked had they remained. The Unification Monument at the Mojave Outpost is one of the most famous landmarks in Fallout New Vegas. The statues represent the treaty that was signed here by Nevada's Desert Rangers and the New California Republic in 2271. One cool thing about the monument is that because of its size, we can see it from pretty much everywhere in the Mojave. In fact, if we decided to launch nukes at the Long 15 after the events of Lonesome Road, we can see the statues from the new location on the map, which gives the whole scene a bit of a darker vibe.
Get fucked.